Her statement is very well put together. She's selecting the word integrity, which of course we know from the leaked transcripts was exactly the expression used by her senior counsel Colin Smith in November when he said, oh, the integrity bit was his words. But she's very silent on the allegations which were upheld that they were instructed to question the credibility and motivation of Maurice McCabe. And you see, I think while she says, and we could take it maybe in some sense, that they had to cross-examine the evidence of everybody, including Maurice McCabe, and I think everybody would accept that. But this wasn't about cross-examining the evidence. This was about questioning his motivation, his credibility, and having two senior officers prepared to give false testimony to back that up. And those allegations are still unanswered.
But isn't she right, though, in relation to the documents that have been leaked, she calls it selective information purporting to relate to these proceedings, put into the public domain, the transcripts of no more than 3 minutes of what happened at a commission which ran for 34 10-hour days?
I think it's interesting that she did choose to focus on that and says they're selective, but she doesn't say they're not true. And they're very comprehensive in their entirety of what they're claiming. And the claim hasn't been denied anywhere that Garda authorities instructed their legal team to basically go in and give false testimony to mislead the Commission as regards the credibility and motivation of Maurice McCabe. And that allegation
how do you know
there.
that, though? You can't say that for certain.
I can say that for certain, and nobody has disputed it anywhere, including the Garda Commissioner. To say that the evidence that was leaked is not valid or that it's only part of the story, that's not the case. It's a very comprehensive transcript which stands up in its own ground, and that added to other testimony that I'm absolutely aware of, that the Garda legal team adopted an incredibly adversarial approach to Maurice McCabe, where it was repeatedly stated at the Commission that he was being in effect put on trial. That treatment was not given to anybody else. I think it's interesting that the Commissioner says she's now asked the Minister to investigate the matter of the two senior officers, but the reality is that this claim with these two officers was made over a year ago, and it was only withdrawn last November, just before, on the eve, if you like, of Noreen O'Sullivan herself giving evidence to the Commission. But if that information was out there, which it was, why hasn't she, as the Garda Commissioner, already investigated that matter? And why is she only doing it now that it's in the public domain? Because she was aware of it.
Do you welcome, though, that it has gone to Gsoc to investigate?
I think sadly Gsoc are not equipped to deal with these matters adequately. It's interesting that she talks again about dissent not being disloyalty. For the current Garda whistleblowers whose cases are before Gsoc, they haven't been able to get a proper hearing, and dissent very much is disloyalty under Noreen O'Sullivan's watch as far as they're concerned. So I don't think Gsoc are adequately equipped to deal with this. I'm glad somebody's investigating it, but to be honest with you, the real answers have to come for the Minister for Justice, who in legislation ultimately is accountable for the behaviour of the Commissioner, and I don't think she's accounted for her actions adequately. I think this is a longer statement basically saying what she did the last time and hiding behind confidentiality and legal points which have not been validated by any independent source. Again, talking about Section 11 of the Commission of Investigation, which it's factually incorrect, because that simply deals with evidence, and the information here is not evidence. It's a legal position being put forward.
But if there was a position, if there is an implicit admission in this statement that perhaps Sergeant McCabe's motivation and credibility were to be challenged before the Commission, isn't that fair enough? Because as she says, the Gardaí were being subjected to the most serious of allegations from Maurice McCabe. So in any court, isn't the person making the allegations cross-examined to the fullest?
I'd be fully in favour of evidence being cross-examined, and indeed motivation can be, but that's entirely different than senior Garda officers, in order to substantiate that, being prepared to give false evidence to the Commission. And that big giant elephant is still in the room, because that is a fact that has been undisputed, and we need answers on that, because that evidence was apparent to the Commissioner as late as a year ago. ago and nothing has been done on it. Now we're being told she is going to do something on it or ask the minister. That's not good enough for the head of An Garda Síochána. We're talking about, in essence, perjury to a sworn commission. It's highly serious.
But we don't know exactly what those two senior guard there were prepared to do, because it hasn't made it into the final report, and it's not really dealt with in any of the leaked documents either.
And it is very much out there in the public domain, and the Garda Commissioner's statement hasn't answered it, and we need very clear answers on it. I mean, I'd like to know, for example, why is Noreen O'Sullivan only acting on it now?
But it's only a suspicion, Clare Daly, about what the two senior Garda officers did, and she is now referring it to Gsoc to be investigated.
The people who were at the commission are very clear on what the two officers said. Very, very clear, and there were quite a number of people at that commission, and I honestly believe the truth will out, and I'm perfectly satisfied and safe, if you like, in saying that they were prepared to give evidence to mislead, and only withdrew that when taped evidence was produced by Maurice McCabe to say what they had said was not true. That was the trigger that led to it being withdrawn. This man could have been ruined had he not had that tape recording.
Yeah, well, the matter is gone now to Gsoc to investigate that, and as I say, it's not fully clear from Mr. O'Higgins' commission that that was indeed the case. Some people have said that it is time to draw a line under this, that nothing good can come from repeatedly going over this same situation in relation to Maurice McCabe. What do you say to that?
I think we can't move forward until we honestly deal with what has happened, and I think we have repeatedly made the point that since the exit of Commissioner Callanan and Minister Shatter, unfortunately, under the watch of Noreen O'Sullivan and Francis Fitzgerald, the same very bad practice regarding the vilification of whistleblowers has continued, and there's nothing new in that, and we know that from the treatment of Keith Harrison and Nick Keogh, current Garda whistleblowers, whose dissent has been very much treated as disloyalty. These people are out of work sick, they've been vilified, demonised, their life has been made an absolute hell, all on Noreen O'Sullivan's watch. So you can't really change an organisation and develop a modern police service if you're going to build it around the same old hierarchy who were there in the past. And I think, if you like, we made half measures at reform, or measures to give the illusion of reform. It's unfinished business, which now, as a result of this, has to be addressed, or we're being unfair to all of the good guards who are out there, and to all of the victims of crime as well. You can't build something on false scaffolding, if you like.